So very quickly, to join our panel, please give very warm welcome, joining us virtually, in fact, please give very warm welcome to Hashish Dahiya, who is the Chairman and CEO of PB FinTech. A very warm welcome to Hashish. There he is. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Very
So
much for having me here, yeah.
where are you calling in from?
I'm in Delhi right now. I'm in Gurgaon. I was supposed to fly in, but I flew in today morning into Delhi at 4 o'clock. So there were some challenges. That's all.
Okay. Well, I'm very glad you're here to join our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciated indeed. And also joining us, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to Ashish Singhal, the co-founder and CEO of CoinSwitch. A very warm welcome. Please do take a seat. And also please do welcome Harsh Jain, the CEO and co-founder of Dream 11 and Dream Sports. A very warm welcome. Very warm welcome to you. And our final guest is Jaimin Shah, who is the co-chair of ASSOCHAM Gujarat, which is the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry for India. Yes, a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Good stuff. What a fantastic panel we've got here. And yes, well, I'm hoping you all sort of were listening to what Hemang was talking about just then, because it's going to be very interesting to get your sort of take on the governance and government as well. How much attention have you had to pay towards government, and how exactly has it hindered your growth as well, Harsh?
Well, I think it's not really hindered our growth, to be fair. We've been here for about 14 years, and in spite of not having as much regulation as we'd like in the space, we have grown to about 14 crore, so 140 million users in India. But imagine that was without regulations. Now, the Supreme Court of India has ruled fantasy sports to be a complete game of skill, not related to gambling or betting in any way. That perception has gone. The other part is that the Honorable PM and the Honorable FM have said that for the first time, gaming is going to be embraced and that India can be a gaming superpower. And so now with the Ministry of IT as well saying that gaming will now be looked at as under the Intermediary Act at the center rather than the state level. If we could have gotten here and gotten to 140 million users without that, we're very excited to see what we can do with more regulation.
Indeed, and we're going to talk about the sector a little bit later on,
sure.
I'm hoping, anyway. Let's move over to Ashish, founder and CEO of CoinSwitch. Tell us about, what sort of attention you've had to pay towards governance and how that's hindered your growth recently.
So again, it hasn't hindered our growth, and like Harsh as well, we've been in the space for 5 years, have grown steadily, even though the clarity is coming in piecemeal, but it is definitely helping grow this industry. And we have to understand that innovation always needs to be ahead of regulation. Regulation need to follow, because we have to give enough growth for the innovation to happen. Crypto industry is just 10 years old, and it's we call it the new internet in the making. And that's why to regulate internet in the right way, which foster innovation, which takes user, innovators and the government together, would definitely need time. In the last 1.5 years of our launch in India, we've already grown to 16 million users, one of the fastest fintech company to grow this far, even with the uncertainty of crypto in the space, right? And in India. But we have seen that other countries have now started to adopt crypto, not just as a financial tool or a decentralized tool, but also as the new Web 3.0, where new companies which are not built with a centralized system, but built with community all around. Then, as a user, you're not just a user of that product, you're actually building that product together with the founders, right? And I think new set of such companies would propagate as more regulation clarity comes into space. Today, you see one of the highest set of unicorns in India. I would say it would multifold when the Web3 technology is regulated and is embraced in India itself.
That's a big statement. You heard it here first. There you go. Thank you so much. Moving over to our virtual speaker, Hashish Dahiya. What's your take on governance and how it's affected your business?
See, I think in a product like insurance, governance is extremely critical. And if you look over I believe over let's say a long term, ever since independence, a lot of our rule framing was based out of fears of misuse, of how somebody could misuse a particular loophole. And people used to spend an extraordinary amount of time, trying to plug those loopholes, and people used to spend an extraordinary amount of time trying to find those loopholes. I believe, as I see the last few years, and clearly I don't have any political affiliation here, but as I look at the last few years, what I see is boldness, which is, let's not throw the baby out with the bath water. Let's do something which is principles based, which makes sense. And, let's not have essentially moving away from a rules based architecture to more of a principles based architecture. And I think it's an excellent move, and that is very much required because the country is changing. See, insurance, if you look at, it's a virtual product. There is nothing ever transacted physically. It is it is a promise to pay in case something goes wrong. It is so. I believe it is a product where internet obviously has a massive impact in terms of the delivery, in terms of the understanding of risk, in terms of and the traceability improves multifold of everything, of a consumer declaration, of a consumer promise, of a claim tracking. Everything improves multifold in the digital world. And so I believe it takes a bit of time. And for a while, see, when you have, I was listening to, sir speaking about uh, a policy for drones, a policy for perhaps the other gentleman mentioned maybe a policy for crypto. See, these are absolute sunrise sectors. So you can have the privilege of starting from scratch because there isn't, quite honestly, a policy before that. In a sector like insurance, we have to contend with an architecture which was built in 1932, well before India became independence. And a bulk of our architecture is from 1932. And so, of course, changing that does not just take what I would say boldness and aspiration, it also takes decluttering the past because the past has been built on those hundreds of philosophies and those problems which people faced over the last almost 90 years. But the time has come to make that change, and I think very bold moves will be required there. There's no doubt. So that's kind of my take. I think sectors which have been regulated for long will require a little more effort in decluttering.
Thanks so much. Very quickly, just before we move over to Jaimin, I'd like your response, if possible. Now that you've heard from the private sector, what is your sort of response to them? Are you encouraging to what they're saying?
No, it's very encouraging, and I think that's how all the policies will evolve when we sit together and work together. But I would like to take a cue from the last speaker on how do you unlearn the history of 90 years on a sector, and how do you learn new things, and how do you make the government quickly learn new things. At our commission, we like to use one analogy that everybody here are of my age, and you must have watched the movie Matrix. And in Matrix, when Trinity jumps to a helicopter, and she quickly dials in, saying that, hey, how do I operate this helicopter? And a course is thrown to her, and she knows how to operate that helicopter. So with the technology, government has to learn at the speed of light or at the speed of technology. And this is what I think we are looking at. And in fact, the technology itself is going to help us. We are working on a 24/7 digital platform, which will be available to every civil servant. So I think working together with private sector, learning from them, embracing them is the way forward, and that is the way things are also evolving in many of the sectors.
Excellent. Well, that nicely actually leads me over to Jaimin now. Tell us a little bit more about how these new sectors sort of pop up, especially with different disruptors and innovation. How is that handled by the government? And what's your take on how the government, deals with the fast pace of these changes?
Yeah. What I'll also continue with what Hemang Bhai said, that government is currently like what Alvin Toffler said. If you are into 21st century and if you don't learn, unlearn or relearn, then you are illiterate. And same thing happens and applies to government. This government is also acting fast in terms of learning new technologies. Traditionally, we all know that government regulators, they are prescriptive as well as input-based, they derive those regulations. But nowadays, you can see that they are very collaborative and outcome-based, and that's how you can see PLIs and all other schemes propping up. Now, come back to your question about what kind of regulation or to address new age tech. And we all know that new age tech, whether we define them into transportation or food or aviation, we don't know. And that's how government is also taking that clue. And that's how they are also coming out with a sandbox kind of environment. And that's how, take an example of Canada. They came out with Canada Security Association or Alliance, where they gave some kind of leeway to innovators to come out with their ideas, and also gave regulators a time to understand that idea, and then they came out with a regulation. So this kind of understanding where government and new tech companies, they sit together and decide how collaboratively they can come out with a regulation.
Brilliant. And so is that quite a common scenario right now, or does it need sort of to be pushed more, do you think?
Yeah, and that's what's happening worldwide. Many countries, even India, is also adopting sandbox kind of environment in fintech sector. And that's what we can see from government's directives, that they want to understand how new age technology, how startups and unicorns, they are coming out with new ideas so that they can not hold their growth, but they can be their partner into regulation, so that their interest, citizens' interest and national interest being taken care of.
Very well said. I'm very conscious of the time because sadly we don't have much time. So why don't we give our audience your sort of key message when it comes to government and governance going forward, and what sort of collaboration would you like to see, all of you, going forward as well?
I think what we've seen in the last few years especially is that this government is willing to commit time, energy and deeper understanding of new disruptive sectors. And disruption by its very definition means that you usually have no prior history of regulation. And I think that's been a very nice thing for entrepreneurs to see, that we do get time now with the government. And what we'd like to see is exactly what's happened in the gaming front, for example, I can speak, is that this talk of banning things that are unknown we're moving away from that. And I think, like Hashish mentioned, the government is enabling first principles thinking about, okay, we need to be ahead of the curve. India needs to be a superpower, which can come through disruption. We can build this $1 trillion digital economy, but not if we keep banning new disruptions. And so what we're seeing now, which we'd love to see going forward, is regulators. We would love to work with the government to regulate the sector, provide more taxation for the exchequer. For example, Fantasy Sports is providing now 3,000 crores of tax, we'll be providing 10,000 crores. And that's what we want to help. We want to help with skilled labor. And so I think the government is looking at it very positively. And I'd just say, do more.
Thank you so much. Hashish, your take on what you would like to see change?
I think what Harsh said equally, I would just add to that is, especially in the crypto space, what we are seeing is that it's not just an asset class in the making, it's the new internet in the making itself, right? And I might be far reaching here, and only time would tell how this plays out. But any Indian entrepreneur today starting a business online has to use Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook of the world to launch his business and grow his business. 70% of our revenue goes to these infrastructure companies itself. So India has succeeded in services and now succeeding in products, but we haven't succeeded in building infrastructure. What Web 3.0 is providing us is a new set of area to build these infrastructures itself. Tomorrow's Microsoft, Google, Facebook could come from India and could be built on the blockchain and the crypto ecosystem itself. And that is why regulating this space, regulating in the correct way, not overpowering the kind of innovation that is happening, but working along with the users and innovators and creating set of pillars to let this industry grow and see the potential of it. We are definitely the believers in this space, so we would be on the one side cheering for it always. But there is definitely a caution needed as well, which I think government is taking the right steps toward. But there has to be a midway where both governments and innovators then can come together, create a space for innovation, as well as be cautious of user protection, making sure that that's your highest priority, but still giving you an ability to create something big, something dominating, not just say a unicorn building billions of dollars worth in India, but maybe creating global companies which are trillions of dollars of worth and creating infrastructure and becoming a net exporter of technology rather than importer of technology that we are today.
Very well said. I am sadly conscious of the time. Very, very quickly, over to Hashish. In just a couple of sentences, what would you like to see change?
I will say something controversial for a change. I think, when we built Policy Bazaar, we did not hire anybody from the insurance industry. There was a reason for that, because there was a way insurance was done, and we did not want any of that in our organization at all, despite the fact that knowledge is very, very important. So it's not because we don't understand the value of knowledge. I'm making a very critical point here. I think when you have to unlearn the last 90 years and learn for the next 9 years, let's say, I think that unlearning implies us saying we don't have knowledge. And government functions by definition tend to be ones which have a lot of knowledge, including regulators, including everything. So what I'm trying to say is a huge amount of change where people are brought in for who they are rather than the knowledge they have, for the ideas they have within government. And I would say, maybe it's a wrong word, but I would say a huge amount of shuffling, so that the people who get into government roles are not experts, but are the individuals who want to see the country change. I think that can be transformative, because with experts usually it becomes very difficult. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. We are going to have to hurry up, sadly, but I would really love to get your take as well, your final comments, Jaimin, before we move over for your final comments from Hemang, your final words.
So yes, regulation is required to protect, as I said earlier, but it has to be predictive. It has to be collaborative, and it has to be that regulation should provide a good environment for investor to invest and a country to prosper.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And final words. Wrap our session up.
So, Honorable Prime Minister's vision of 5 trillion economy and ease of living in the New India Inc., as we call, is going to be the most important building block. So when next time, if somebody from New India Inc. comes and sits in front of government, they don't have to explain anything, and government can learn and be responsive. I think that is what we are moving towards, and that is what my wish, and of course, that is what my work is also. So that's what the last word.
Well, I can't thank you enough, gentlemen, for joining us for such a brilliant discussion. Thank you so much. I'm hoping our speakers will be around if you have any further questions. Let's hear it for our panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.